What unfolds when a major Hollywood figure is unexpectedly confronted on live television with deeply personal and intrusive questions? What occurs when a talk show host abandons standard interview conduct and crosses boundaries without hesitation? In this video, we explore the intense exchange that led to Jennifer Lopez abruptly leaving the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Her sudden departure caught audiences off guard and quickly became a hot topic in the entertainment industry. This wasn't just another awkward celebrity interview. It was a clear example of how quickly things can go wrong when mutual respect breaks down. Before we get into the details, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment below. You'll want to hear exactly how this interview unraveled, because it's one of the most surprising moments in recent talk show history. The setting was a typical Tuesday night episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The audience was energetic, the cameras were rolling, and Jennifer Lopez had just stepped onto the stage to a round of applause. Dressed in a striking emerald green outfit, she greeted the crowd with her familiar smile, glowing with confidence and charm. She took her seat with poise, crossing her legs and brushing her hair back in that effortlessly graceful way fans know so well. Jimmy Kimmel, clearly excited, waited for the applause to settle before turning to the camera with enthusiasm. "Jennifer Lopez. Everyone," he said, gesturing toward her as the audience cheered. "Thanks so much for joining us tonight, JLO. You look amazing, as always." Jennifer replied warmly, "Thanks, Jimmy. I'm happy to be here. I've really been looking forward to this." Kimmel nodded, flipping through his notes. "Well, we're excited to have you. There's a lot to cover: your latest projects, your music, your brand work. But first, I want to ask about something that's been making the rounds in the tabloids." At that moment, Jennifer's expression shifted slightly. Her smile remained, but her eyes hinted at discomfort. A subtle tension appeared in her posture. "Oh, boy," she said with a quiet laugh that didn't carry much humor. "What are they saying now?" Kimmel let out a chuckle, though it carried a slightly sharper tone than before. "You know how it goes, people always have something to say. But I wanted to hear your take on some of the recent criticism about your performances. Some folks are suggesting the energy isn't quite what it used to be." The room went quiet. The question hung in the air, not quite hostile, but clearly loaded. Jennifer's professional composure wavered momentarily, then returned, but the mood had clearly shifted. What started as a light conversation had taken a more pointed turn. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," she said, still polite but firmer now. "Because the response I've gotten from audiences and collaborators has been overwhelmingly positive." Kimmel leaned back, his smile widening. It was a different tone to it, now less playful, more probing. "Well, let's be real," he said. "You're not in your 20s anymore. Some are wondering if maybe it's time to shift more into the business side of things and leave the stage work to the younger crowd." An uneasy silence fell over the studio. Even the audience seemed to sense the tension. Jennifer's fingers, previously relaxed on the chair's armrest, curled slightly in response. "I'm sorry, you're really questioning my talent because of my age?" she asked, her voice now quieter but unmistakably serious. "Hey, I'm just bringing up what people are talking about," Kimmel replied, holding up his hands, as if to suggest innocence, though he kept his grin. "There are videos online. People say the dance routines aren't as sharp. The vocals seem a bit off. I'm just wondering if you've noticed it too." Jennifer's expression tightened. It was clear she was choosing her next words carefully. With calm but unmistakable resolve, she answered, "Jimmy, I've been doing this for more than 30 years. I've sold millions of albums, starred in dozens of films, and launched several thriving businesses. If you think I'm going to sit here and let you diminish that on your show, you're mistaken." But Kimmel didn't back off. In fact, he seemed more assertive after Jennifer's response. "Look, I truly respect everything you've done," he began. "But let's be honest, we're all adults here. Isn't it fair to have an open conversation about how aging affects careers in Hollywood? It's something that happens to everyone eventually." Jennifer leaned in slightly, her voice rising. "The reality of aging. The reality is I'm performing at my highest level, working harder than people half my age. The reality is you're sitting here trying to undermine that for what? Ratings? A reaction? The room grew still.
Ow.
The energy in the studio had completely shifted. What was expected to be a lighthearted segment had taken a much more personal turn. Then came the moment that changed everything. Rather than adjusting course or acknowledging the tension, Kimmel leaned further into the conversation with a statement that would soon make headlines. "I'm just saying maybe it's time to be realistic about where you are in your career," he said, his tone growing increasingly dismissive. "How long can you keep acting like you're still Jenny from the block? At some point, doesn't it come off a little desperate?" The final word struck a nerve. Jennifer's expression tightened, and the frustration that had been simmering now came to the surface. The mood in the studio shifted again. Jennifer didn't react immediately. She sat still, eyes locked on Kimmel, and when she did speak, her voice was quiet but firm. "Did you just call me desperate?" she asked, carefully enunciating each word. "Did you really say that and national television?" For the first time, Kimmel's confident smile wavered. Still, he didn't seem to grasp the weight of what he'd said. "Well, if the shoe fits," he shrugged, attempting to appear casual. "I'm not trying to be harsh, I'm just being honest. That's what good TV is, right? Real conversations?" Jennifer let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Real conversations? That what you call this? You spring disrespectful questions on me, focus on my age, and when I defend myself, you label me desperate? That's your version of honest television." Kimmel motioned toward his desk, where his note cards lay. "Hey, I didn't create the headline, Zim, just asking what everyone else is already talking about. Isn't it better to address these topics directly instead of ignoring them?" The condescending tone in his voice was unmistakable, and Jennifer's patience was wearing thin. She uncrossed her legs and leaned forward, no longer holding back. "What people are talking about," she repeated, her voice rising. "You mean tabloid rumors designed to sell stories? The kind of noise made by people who can't stand seeing a woman succeed for decades. That's what you want to focus on." Kimmel raised his hands again, but this time the gesture seemed more defensive than relaxed. Okay, let's dial it back. I didn't realize this was such a touchy subject." "Touchy?" Jennifer shot back sharply. "You think this is about being emotional? This is about respect, Jimmy. Something you seem to be lacking right now." The audience was clearly uncomfortable. Some viewers glanced around, unsure how to react. Few pulled out their phones, sensing this wasn't just another interview. This was something people would talk about long after it ended. But instead of de-escalating, Kimmel chose to press further. "Look, I understand this is difficult to hear, but the truth can be hard," he said. "You're Jennifer Lopez. You've had an incredible career. But even icons have to face reality eventually. Madonna went through this. Cher did too. It's just how the industry works. Don't compare me to other women like we're all the same," Jennifer snapped, now visibly frustrated. "Don't pretend you're doing me a favor by bringing me on here and insulting me. And don't dress it up as truth when all you're doing is trying to tear down successful women." Kimmel's face turned red. For the first time, he seemed genuinely upset. "Hold on. I've had countless successful women on this show without any issues. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe you just can't handle a little criticism." His words hung heavy in the air. The studio felt suspended in silence, everyone bracing for her reply. Jennifer stared at him for a moment before responding, her voice calm and steady. "A little criticism?" she repeated. "You invite me here under the impression we'll talk about my work. Then you spend the entire segment questioning my skills, my age, and my career decisions. You call me desperate? You suggest I should stop performing? You compare me to other women like we're interchangeable. And you call that a little criticism?" "I'm just doing my job," Kimmel said, now sounding more defensive than assured. "Sometimes that means asking the tough questions. If you can't handle that, maybe interviews aren't the right space for you." The remark seemed to surprise even him once it was said. But it was too late. Jennifer's eyes widened. For a moment, she looked stunned by the audacity of the comment. "Can't handle it?" She repeated, her voice barely above a whisper, but unwavering. "Jimmy, I've spent my entire career handling people like you. Since I was a teenager in this business, I've dealt with men who thought it was okay to belittle me, challenge my worth, and try to define my value for me. The difference is that most people have the sense to make comments like that behind my back, not to my face on national television. Jennifer rose abruptly from her chair, the sound of it scraping the floor cutting through the quiet studio. The movement was so sudden that it startled the audience. Few even gasped. Kimmel looked up at her, and for the first time, the confidence in his eyes gave way to uncertainty. "You want to know the real issue here, Jimmy?" she said, now standing over him with the presence and composure that have defined her decades-long career. "It's that you're a small, insecure man who feels better about himself by trying to belittle successful women. You hide behind your desk, your scripted jokes, and that fake smile. But at the core, you're just another person trying to undermine what you don't understand or respect. I've achieved more in my career than you likely ever will." Kimmel opened his mouth as if to respond, but said nothing. The shift in power was evident. The host, who had dominated the conversation just minutes earlier, now looked unsure and off balance. "And what's worse," she added, her voice more firm, "is that you think you're being clever. You frame it as edgy or bold, but in reality, it's petty. You believe tearing me down will somehow elevate you, but all it's done is reveal your lack of character." The studio remained silent. The hum of the cameras felt unusually loud. Many in the audience looked on, caught between discomfort and admiration. Jennifer turned to face Kimmel once more, remained at his desk, appearing like someone who wished he could disappear. "I've been in this industry long enough to recognize when someone is trying to build themselves up at my expense," she said, cutting through the silence. "But what you don't realize is that I've gotten where I am by speaking up, demanding respect, and refusing to let people like you reduce my worth." She paused deliberately, letting the moment settle. When she spoke again, her voice was calm but resolute. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to leave this stage with my dignity intact. And you're going to sit here and reflect on who you really are, because right now, you're showing the world exactly the kind of man that women in this business have spent their lives standing up to." Kimmel finally responded, though his voice lacked conviction. "Now hold on, let's just take a moment. This is still my show, and I think you might be overreacting. This was meant to be a regular interview." That word "overreacting" shifted the tone instantly. Jennifer turned sharply, prompting a few audience members in the front row to lean back in their seats. Her expression was intense, her patience clearly exhausted. "Overreacting?" She repeated each syllable, pointed and deliberate. "You spent the last 15 minutes trying to undermine me, questioning my career, my age, my value. And now you're framing it as a normal interview? You called me desperate, and now you want to pretend this was just a casual conversation?" Kimmel fidgeted in his chair, finally sensing the weight of what he'd done. "I never said you were. Washed up? I was just asking the questions I thought the audience might have. It's what talk show hosts do." "No, Jimmy," Jennifer replied, her voice rising just enough to command complete attention. "What hosts do good ones is treat their guests with respect. They create a space where people feel welcome to share their stories and promote their work. What you did was ambush me and attempt to humiliate me for a reaction." She stepped closer to his desk. Kimmel subtly rolled his chair backward, the dynamic having fully reversed. "You want to talk about desperation?" she continued, unwavering. "What's desperate is a middle-aged man who finds satisfaction in mocking accomplished women.
Oh.
What's desperate is hiding behind your writers and canned laughter while you tear down someone who's spent a lifetime building her career." Room was still. Phones were raised, quietly recording what had become an unforgettable moment. Others simply watched, stunned by what was unfolding. Kimmel made a final attempt to regain control. "Look, I think we've gotten a little off track. Maybe we should take a breath and talk about your latest projects. I'm sure people would." "Love to hear about that." Jennifer gave a short laugh without amusement. "Now you're interested in my work? After questioning my relevance for the entire interview, you think you can just change topics and act like none of this happened?" "I'm trying to help us both move forward," Kimmel said, his voice now reflecting genuine discomfort. "Can still turn this around if we talk about something else. A way out?" Jennifer's voice rose with clarity, reaching every corner of the studio. "Jimmy, there is no way out. You made your decision the moment you chose to disrespect me. You chose to call me desperate. You implied I should quietly step away, like I'm no longer relevant. She paused, glancing around the room at the cameras, the crew, and the audience, all focused solely on her. When she spoke again, her tone was firm, grounded in decades of experience, earning respect in a demanding industry. But here's what you didn't expect. You didn't expect me to speak up. You didn't expect me to challenge you directly and show the world what happens when someone tries to diminish a woman who spent her entire career refusing to be diminished. Kimmel appeared ready to interject, but Jennifer raised her hand in an assertive gesture that stopped him mid-sentence. I'm not done, she said sharply. Here's the issue, Jimmy. Men like you believe you can say whatever you want to women. We'll just smile and accept it because we're supposed to be thankful to be here. You think you can question our skills, our age, our relevance, and we are expected to nod along and keep the peace. She shook her head slightly, a mix of disappointment and clarity in her expression. But here's what you fail to understand. Women like me didn't succeed by staying quiet. We succeeded by fighting for every opportunity, by constantly proving ourselves, and by never allowing anyone to make us feel small or out of place. The silence in the room was so complete that even the sound of her heels touching the floor seemed amplified. Jennifer stepped closer to Kimmel's desk. So here's what's going to happen, she continued, her voice low but resolute. I'm walking off this stage, and the audience here and at home's going to see who you really are. Behind the scripted jokes and forced charm is someone who tries to use power to diminish others. Kimmel made a final attempt to control the moment. Jennifer, come on, let's just finish the interview. We can cut out anything you're uncomfortable with. It doesn't have to be broadcast this way. That suggestion seemed to strike a deeper nerve. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice took on a firm edge. Edit it out, she said, clearly taken aback. You think I'm embarrassed by what just happened? You think I want to hide the fact that I stood up for myself? No. I want people to see this. I want them to see what happens when someone tries to undermine me and I fails. She turned to the audience for the first time, addressing them directly. Everyone watching this is what it looks like when someone tries to tear a woman down. She doesn't let them. This is what happens when someone underestimates who they're speaking to. Then she turned back to Kimmel, and her voice took on a chilling calmness. And since we're being honest here, Jimmy, let me say this clearly. You are a poor excuse for a host and worse, a poor excuse for a man. If you think I'm going to sit here and tolerate your behavior for even one more second, you're seriously mistaken. She paused. Then, with controlled emphasis, delivered the line that would soon spread across headlines and social media. So, you know what, Jimmy? You're fired. The statement echoed through the silent studio. No one moved. No one spoke. Jennifer Lopez turned away and walked toward the exit, composed, purposeful, and unapologetically herself. Her steps echoed in rhythm as she passed the crew, the audience, and the cameras still recording every moment. She didn't glance back. She didn't slow down. She gave no further attention to the host or the moment she had just defined, and as the studio doors closed behind her, leaving Jimmy Kimmel alone at his desk, surrounded by a stunned audience and a quiet crew, one thing was clear. Jennifer Lopez had just delivered one of the most decisive moments in talk show history. One Kimmel likely wouldn't live down. So what's your take? Was Jennifer Lopez right to stand her ground and walk off the show? Or did Jimmy Kimmel have a point about asking difficult questions? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more candid Hollywood moments like this, and let us know what celebrity face-off should we break down next. There's always more to uncover in the world of entertainment.